Welcome to the Hall of Heroes podcast, where we do Hall of Heroes history of different things that we have here at the museum. We deep dive so you don't have to, and also make you better at trivia on trivia night. I am John Osborne, and this is Alan Stewart. He has a lot of information that you will enjoy. And today we're covering Tarzan, Zorro, and Popeye.
Yes.
Very cool. They all predate like comic books.
They all predate Superman.
They all predate Superman, yep. So it's very cool that we're going to get into those guys. And then we'll have some more that we're going to do later in the next episode. Yep. But today we're doing Tarzan, Zorro, and Popeye. We'll start out with Tarzan because he was first.
He was first, yeah. So Tarzan came out in an earlier episode. Of course, we talked about the pulps, which predates the comic books.
Right.
So, of course, Tarzan first appeared in the pulps in 1912. So he is over 100 years old and still swinging around with the monkeys. And,
and he started out in a book by Edgar
Rice Burroughs, that's right.
He started the novel Tarzan of the Apes.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. And then he got really, really popular through that.
Yeah, he is, just like, some of the, so like a lot of the things that we've explored were like, DC has their own characters, Marvel has their own characters. The characters that we're going to talk about today have jumped all over the place.
Right.
So like Tarzan, he's been at Dell, he's been at DC, he's been at Marvel. So, the family still owns the copyrights to Tarzan, but he's over 100 years old now.
Right.
So copyrights have fallen off. So he's kind of public domain now.
Right.
So anybody can write and publish a Tarzan comic book story
if they would like.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So it's really cool. So Tarzan is very different from the stuff that we see compared to the other characters. So the next couple episodes we're going to talk about the characters, the early characters that are non-Marvel, non-DC.
Right.
Tarzan's being the first. He's not in tights. He doesn't have superpowers. He can kind of sort of control animals. With his I mean, he can talk in their language,
right?
And that's kind of his superpower,
right?
Is that he can talk to birds in their language, alligators in their language, apes in their language, obviously because he was raised by the apes,
right?
But yeah, and he's just he's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always I always thought Phantom was an interesting character. The as a kid, I remember watching the 1980 movie. That came out in theaters. With Tarzan. Which was really cool. And we have the old Mego figure here from the 1970s of Tarzan, which is interesting because instead of him just having the shorts, like he does in most, in the comics and everything,
right?
They've got a full body suit, but it's like skin colored, but then he's skin underneath.
Right.
Yeah, because like if you look at the back, he's like skin underneath. It's like why did they even?
It's like
why did they even buy? Yeah, he's running around pajamas with the action figure. It's kind of weird.
Yeah,
they could have saved money just doing just the shorts, the material. They could have saved, right?
But yeah, you would think that they probably didn't because they didn't want a half naked Mego to sell. I don't know. What was the thought process
exactly. Yeah,
that's interesting. Illustrated 1929 by Hal Foster. Who was he lived from 1892 to 1982. He died like a month before his 90th birthday.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was the illustrator for a long time.
Oh yeah, very long time.
Very good.
Absolutely.
But he was He also illustrated. Hal Foster also illustrated other well-known comic strip called Prince Valiant.
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
that's right.
And that was long running, like one of the longest running ones.
Well, what's interesting is a lot of the early comic book creators like Siegel and Schuster and Bob Kane and Bill Finger and all of these guys, Tarzan and Popeye and Zorro, the characters that we're talking about today, they influenced them.
Right.
And they, of course, created Superman and Batman and Captain America, all of these guys, because when you go back and read the history of all these creators, they all say, they all tried to get their characters, like Siegel and Schuster for Superman, they tried to get them in the newspapers, which is where Tarzan went. Tarzan was a newspaper, He started in the pulps, then went into newspapers. That's where the big money was.
Well,
back in the day, if you had a comic strip, big money.
Everyone's getting the newspaper.
Exactly.
Everyone back then got the newspaper, so that's how you're going to promote yourself. That's how you're going to. That's how you're going to hit the masses.
That's where, you know, like right now, everybody's like, oh, hey, I want to get in Marvel. That's the big money.
Right.
Well, back in this time period, the newspaper comic strips was the big money. And keep in mind, this is before comics didn't exist yet.
Yeah. Well, and then here's another thing I found interesting about Tarzan. If I'm not mistaken, he had a full page comic strip. Mm-hmm. So when you would open up part of your newspaper, there would be a full on page of Tarzan comic strip that would give you a story.
Well, that's back when the newspapers were like this instead of like this, like they are now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But so you could have a full page comic. I can't imagine opening up a newspaper and seeing a full page comic strip.
Right. Exactly.
That would be amazing.
Oh yeah.
You know. So that's cool.
But it was just. But so, you know, we talk about Tarzan, but you know, like Tarzan, the characters we're talking about now were the influences for the superheroes that you know we come to love now. Exactly. So you know, that's the historical importance that connects these characters from the early newspaper strips and the pulps.
And Tarzan doesn't have any parents.
He's an orphan.
He's an orphan.
Yep. Bob Kane probably took that for Batman.
I mean, Superman also, right? I mean, a kid left in the jungle to be raised by whatever was around him.
Exactly.
You know, that kind of thing. So, there's a lot of things that we take from Tarzan. We kind of take him for granted, actually, because we're like, oh, no, he's just a guy that's...
He's overlooked today.
But he inspired, like you said, he inspired a lot of things that we see today.
Absolutely.
So it's very cool. And so that's why we started out with Tarzan. Mm-hmm. So now I think we're going to move to Zorro, which is in our in our minds is a little more interesting in my opinion. I like Tarzan, but I like Zorro
absolutely.
A little bit
better. So let's dive into that then.
Yep.
All right. So next we're going to talk about Zorro. And the interesting thing about Zorro is Zorro was the first masked character,
right?
You know, and he came out in All Story magazine in 1919.
Yep.
And he was created by Johnston McCauley. And so we have, you know, of course, some Zorro comics here. This is from the Disney 50s television series.
Yeah, that was very popular.
It was. Yeah, absolutely.
His full name was Don Diego de la Vega, if I'm saying that correctly.
That's correct.
Probably not pronunciating correctly, but that is his name.
Right.
And he was like basically a bounty on his head.
Yep.
For whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, he's kind of like Robin Hood. You know, he stole from the rich, gave to the poor. Very similar to Robin Hood. Very similar story. But you know, with the sword instead of the bow and arrow.
Yep.
And of course, he was masked, so he could hide his identity because he was a considered, I guess, royalty.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was basically.
I mean, he was from a prominent family.
Super rich.
Yeah, he was very prominent family.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he had a big house.
Yep.
And within that house were little corridors and little secret passages.
Yeah.
And a little area underneath the house. Does it sound familiar?
Yes, it does.
Where he would run his Zorro stuff out of, which he had his horse named Tornado. So I mean, obviously we're heading towards Batman. That is
obviously Bob Kane was a Zorro fan, or Bill Finger was. One of them was a big Zorro fan. Had to have been.
Yeah.
Very similarities to Batman.
Yeah, I mean, he walks around at night masked and is helping people out.
Has a horse instead of a Batmobile.
Right. But that was the transportation then. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah.
But the townspeople called him El Zorro because he was fox-like. He would not just fight against crime or whatever, but when they would try to catch him, he was more agile. He was acrobatic, and then he would leave the Z mark on people just to mess with people.
Right. Exactly.
So that was, and then he also had a secret identity. Now, his secret identity was to be like a kind of a pompous, what they called fop back in the day.
Playboy.
Yeah.
Just like Bruce Wayne.
But,
again, more
he
similar
was
to Batman.
to be kind of like almost an idiot. Like he was kind of like not super smart. He kind of played that when
he played dumb.
Yeah. When
and the same Bruce Wayne does that. He plays like the dumb, rich playboy.
Right.
So again, Bob Kane, Bill Finger took a lot from Zorro.
Yeah.
And utilized that in Batman.
And that's why we see, if you're a fan of Batman, you have realized that in the past, sometimes when the parents and little Bruce Wayne are leaving a theater, they're coming from a Zorro movie.
Exactly.
They're coming from something like that. So if you ever see that kind of stuff while you're watching a Batman movie or anything, that's why. Because he actually was taking a lot from Zorro.
Yeah, and they pretty much, they even threw Zorro, like you said, into the origin.
Right.
So they're openly admitting it. Yeah. That we've taken a lot of Batman from Zorro, and they placed it where Zorro was part of Batman's origin story, which is very cool.
Yeah. And he's been played by, I don't know, countless amount of people.
Yes.
Because they had movies, they had serials, they had everything. If they could.
He's been in newspapers, he's been in TV, he's been in, like you said, the serials, the movies. Just a ton of Zorro stuff. I remember as a kid in the 70s, they had the TV show on back then, or it might have been the reruns of the 60s Disney series.
Probably, yeah.
But, me and some of the neighborhood kids, we take sticks and,
Yeah.
Zorro, I would play Zorro as a kid, I remember doing that, that's what you did, I am an old guy.
But yeah, so that's basically some decent amount of information on Zorro. He's very cool, and these are things that you can obviously check out here at the Hall of Heroes. Some really cool stuff. And then next we have maybe our two as together combined. Right. We got Popeye coming up, so we're gonna switch over to Popeye real quick.
Yep.
And we'll talk about him and end the podcast with that. All right, now we'll end with Popeye.
Yep.
So we did Tarzan, we did Zorro, and now we're on to Alan and I's maybe personal favorites from back in the day. We both love us some Popeye, man. He was amazing. Mm-hmm. And to find out, doing our research and everything, to find out that Popeye was a side character, or just a character that they put in one of the things that we'll get to here really soon, and then became popular. He wasn't the main idea.
He wasn't. He was introduced in 1929 by King Pictures, the comic book strip. It was called Thimble Theater. Mm-hmm. And like you said, Popeye was a secondary character. He wasn't the main character, but fans wrote in and they got very excited about him. And so then they made him the main character. In 1933, then Fleischer Cartoons, who did the 1940 Superman stuff, and they were kind of on par with Disney at this time with their cartoon quality, and they started doing, some of their early cartoons was Popeye, and it was also some of their most popular cartoons at the time.
Right.
Popeye became so popular, he actually probably had more merchandise than Superman.
Yeah.
In the 30s and 40s. It was incredible. Popeye was the man back then.
Right. So to backtrack a little bit, with Elise Segar, his name is spelled Segar, and when he would sign his name, just so people would know that that's how you pronounce his name, he would draw a little cigar on top of his signature, so you would know that that's how you pronounced it. And like Alan was saying, it was Thimble Theater. So Thimble Theater started out with basically these three characters, which were Olive Oil. Yep. She was the main character. Right. And then her boyfriend, Castor Oil.
Yeah.
No, not kidding. And then they had a little kind of sidekick guy that they went with, and his name was Ham Gravy, which also is my name.
Now you're making me hungry.
Yeah. But so what happens is Castor Oil needs to take a ship to a place called Dice Island. And so he goes to the docks and he sees this guy, Popeye, and he asks him, are you a sailor? So if you ever get this trivia, Popeye's first words ever spoken in anything ever is, he says, are you a sailor? And he goes, do you think I'm a cowboy? Like, so that is his first, he's a smart aleck from the beginning.
Right, exactly.
And people don't realize that Popeye was actually supposed to be smart. He kind of, almost like we were talking about before, kind of plays dumb.
Right.
But he's really very very intelligent. And there's a lot of things to get to with Popeye, which is it's really cool. But that's how he started. And then people, like Alan said, wrote in and said, we like this Popeye guy.
Right.
And Popeye was taken from, I guess you start talking like Popeye once you start talking.
I am.
Yeah.
And had the old corncob pipe, you know. And of course, we want to talk about the spinach.
Yes.
You know, that, everybody knows that he got his powers from spinach, but, as you're going to tell us, that's not the true origin of.
That is not exactly.
He didn't always eat the spinach.
So before the spinach came along, he would rub this wiffle hen, and its name, I believe, was Bernice. Yeah, Bernice. There would be a wiffle hen, and he would rub the feathers of the wiffle hen, and then he would get his powers.
Right.
And that's really weird. But
that's very weird.
Yeah, and then they went with spinach.
The spinach makes a little more sense.
Yeah. But, and then you think about his pipe.
Right.
Well, okay. You know what? Let me backtrack because I almost forgot about this.
Okay.
Castor oil, so when Popeye gets popular,
right,
they have to kind of push castor oil to the side.
Right, because Olive Oil can't have two boyfriends.
She can't have two boyfriends.
Right. I mean, she could, but not back in this time.
But not in that time. So basically, they let him go, and Popeye comes in as the new boyfriend.
Right.
And then they enter Bluto, who is also known as Brutus sometimes.
Yes, that's right.
So really, and here's the thing about Elise Cigar. Charles Schultz himself.
Creator of Peanuts.
And Carl Banks. Now, you might not know Donald Duck.
And
he created Uncle Scrooge. Scrooge McDuck. They both said that Popeye was the most genius and the best comic strip around. They called him an absolute genius. They thought he was amazing.
Popeye in the early 30s, I mean, he was probably, I'd say it's a pretty tight race between him and Mickey Mouse, who was probably the most popular at that time.
Okay.
I'd say it's a tight race.
I would too. I mean, because they did have
they were the two most popular characters. Merchandise, they were everywhere. They were the cartoons. They were in the newspaper strips. They had comic books. They had everything.
I loved the old Popeye cartoon. Do you remember? It would start out with the sailor thing at the beginning, and they were showing him on not him on a ship, but they would show the closed door, and it would open, and it would show the credits, who the illustrator and stuff like that. And then it closed, and it'd show you the voiceover guys, and it'd close, and it'd show
those
you.
Those were the old Flesher cartoons from the 30s.
They were amazing. I absolutely.
Well, the quality is great on the old Flesher cartoons on Popeye, and later in Superman when they did Superman in 1940.
Absolutely insane.
And those still hold up today, as far as I'm concerned.
They're that good.
They are that good.
Artist-wise, they're that good.
They really were.
It's fun to talk about Popeye and his origins.
Yeah.
The guy who made it, Cigar.
Yeah.
Popeye comes from a guy he knew in his town of Chester, Illinois.
Oh, okay.
This guy's name, if I have it wrote down, Frank Rocky Feigl.
Okay.
This guy was known in Chester, Illinois, to fight anyone. He was known for fights. But not only that, he was nice to children on the streets and would give kids candy. He would just pass out candy. So you imagine that. Not spinach. But you would, that would just make more fights, I think.
Probably.
But Cigar was probably one of those little kids that he got one of those pieces of candy from, and then he just always remembered that guy.
Sure. Made the impression.
Yeah, he made the impression. And when he describes this guy, he describes him kind of in a Popeye type of sense.
Okay.
He is a big burly guy, and kind of a poked out chin and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Bald guy, did he have the corncob pipe?
I don't know. He didn't go that far into it, but
did he have the tattoo on the
I don't know. Maybe. But I just thought it was cool that it comes from a real life guy. When you look at Popeye, you don't think a real life person.
And I'm sure people out there it's why the hell are you guys talking about Popeye? It's but if you think about it, Popeye was an early influence on superheroes.
Yeah.
Popeye basically had superheroes. I mean, he gets the
superpowers.
He can use the corncob pipe. I've seen some of the cartoons where he used like a helicopter twirler.
Oh, he's used it as
able to fly with his corncob pipe. Yeah.
He used it as a torch.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, torch too. Yeah.
To open the can of spinach.
He
does the propeller. He used it as a periscope.
Right.
How does that work?
Who knows?
You know, but he also has
he's fighting dragons. You know,
yeah. He used it to eat spinach, to suck the spinach out of the can. He's used that pipe for everything but a pipe. I think is
right. Exactly.
And then he does the toot toot, which everyone knows at the end of the song. You know, but so much fun.
I remember watching the old cartoons. You know, not the original airings, but of course in the 70s when they re-aired a lot of this stuff. And but yeah, you know, I always enjoyed Popeye.
Yeah,
you know?
Me too.
Yeah, I really did.
So we're going to wrap it up with this kind of sad fact about the guy who created Popeye. Mm-hmm. There was so much merch back then, and that the company that was paying Cigar gave him in 1938. Gave him a contract to pay him $100,000 at the beginning of 1938. In October of 1938, Cigar dies of leukemia. So the same year that I don't even know what the transition of $100,000 in 1938 to now.
Oh, it's a couple million easy.
You would
think.
Several
million, yeah.
And he only has that for.
I'm going to guess it's about 10 million. I'm going to guess it's 10 million in today's dollars.
Okay, I'll go 15 million.
Okay.
You know, but who cares?
Right.
Anyways, so
he died before he could spend it. So I mean, that's the sad
true.
Fact. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he had a really cool funeral. We also didn't mention Robin Williams, Shelley Duvall.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't like that movie, and those people are not my friends. I absolutely love that movie. And it is one of my favorites. It's a musical, which I also love.
Oh, I can't stand musicals.
I love musicals. And you get Robin Williams. I mean,
Robin Williams is great. I give you that. He was great as Popeye. He really was.
How do you pull that off?
Right.
You know what I mean? He's the only person in the world ever that could have actually played that part. There's nobody else. And Shelley Duvall, maybe the only person that could have played Olive Oil.
That's probably true. Yeah.
So, I mean, absolutely. Okay, so we didn't end on a sad note. We ended on a happy note.
Right.
That Robin Williams was the coolest. That is going to wrap us up today for Tarzan, Zorro, and Popeye.
Yep.
So check us out with our next one. We'll be coming back with
our next one is going to be very fun because we're going to talk about some of our favorites.
Yeah.
Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
Green Hornet. We're going to talk about how they're related to each other.
Right.
And we're going to talk about one of my personal favorites, the Phantom that goes to walks.
Yeah.
And you don't want to miss October 3rd and 4th. Garden of Villains.
Yeah.
Come out and see what characters John and I are going to be that weekend.
Yeah. I'm going to be Pumpkin Man. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what that means.
You got going there, don't you?
All right. Hall of Heroes History. For Alan Stewart, I'm John Osborne, and enjoy your comics.